Ah, Rash- this Rashida Tlaib. She is. She's one of the. She's one of this squad, right? The this insufferable squad that's in the U.S. Congress right now. You haven't heard a lot necessarily about AOC and the others and whatever that other idiot is, but this one now because of the whole Hamas Israel thing, you're hearing a lot about Rashida Tlaib, and she was real vocal about and her all of her anti-Israel rhetoric. Listen, I can't I can't hate on her. She's a Palestinian woman, right? So she's going to obviously have real strong feelings for what's going on over there. So I don't hate on her for that. What I do hate on anybody for in anything like this is not being able to see the nuance on both sides and not being able to see, the truth of what's going on. You can be blinded by pure anger at the outcomes of what's happening, or you can look at what's bringing about these things and say, okay, well, I can understand from that point of view. Like if she had just come out and said, she had said she was against Hamas completely and wanted to see a Palestinian state. Again, that name's nonsense, but she wanted to see a Palestinian state. Fine, that's fine. But to say that you want to see the end of the Jewish state is just nonsense to me. But so she got censored in the Congress. I'm going to read this article here fairly quickly. This is from MSNBC, so of course it's going to be garbage, but I'm going to read it anyway. It's always good to get the perspective from the dumpster fire. So here it is. How House Republicans are literally abusing their privilege, of course. All right. Last week, the House voted on a resolution to censor Representative Rashida Tlaib for her statements about the war against Israel, or between Israel and Hamas. I can't read right now. Came just a few months after House Republicans censored Adam Schiff as revenge for his role in impeaching former President Donald Trump. Sure. Like, I love how they frame this as revenge. Like, shut up. Okay. Those resolutions were both fast tracked to the floor, taking advantage of a parliamentary quirk that deems them privileged as they deal with the privileges of the House. So it means that they have voting privileges in the House. So there's nothing new about the use of privilege resolutions, which must be voted on within 2 legislative days once they're introduced. Over the last few decades, they've often been used as tools for the minority party to force votes that are more about scoring political points than simply making sure the House is functioning properly. But the censures of Tlaib and Schiff are different. They show that despite being in the majority, Republicans have resorted to using their privilege to create the illusion of action as their majority squabbles over how to achieve anything substantive. Okay, a lot to unpack there. There's a little bit of truth there, but that's on both sides. Like, you're acting like that's a Republican thing. There hasn't been anything substantive done in the House in years. It's I think honestly, I think the only skeleton POS that's ever gotten anything done in that House is probably Nancy Pelosi, because I think she's yeah, I think she's bad, but she's good at getting things done in the House. So yeah, the rest of them just kind of, it's just like shuffling chairs on the Titanic. House rules define so-called questions of privilege as those that deal with the safety, dignity, and the integrity of proceedings. Those those can be matters that fall solely under the House's jurisdiction, like impeachment and initiating spending bills and making sure that the record of debates is accurate. They also include allegations of impropriety, uh, most often demanding that the ethics committee look into allegations against a member. Looking back at the privilege resolutions filed in the last 20 years, the party in the minority tends to file many more of them. This makes sense since the main perk of being in the majority is controlling the speakership, and with it, the power to set the legislative agenda. Invoking privilege thus becomes a way to get around majority control. And since the clock starts as soon as these resolutions are introduced and accepted as legitimately privileged, they can't be ignored or put on the back burner. Okay, so this just goes into a little bit of that. I'm just going to talk in jest. I mean, if you're using you're using your platform or you're using your position in the House to call against a war, great. Okay. Like Tlaib is doing essentially, but what she's doing is she's not calling out to be like she's not calling out her disdain or her uh, you know she's not against the war itself. What she's against is she's against the, I guess, retaliation of Israel for what Hamas did to them on October 7th. So while retaliation and these kinds of things, it's not obviously not the greatest way to handle things. I think anybody that was attacked so just I'll just say grossly would want some form of retaliation, or the very least, and I think this is more what it is, would want to put an absolute end to it ever happening again. So, and the fact that she's using her ability to speak in the House to just slight on the state of Israel and calling for its annihilation, I think warrants her censorship. So I don't. So I can see why MSNBC is talking like this because it's a garbage news organization and it's just a propaganda machine. So that's all they're saying. They're just going to spew out that kind of garbage anyway. Now, as far as the Adam Schiff thing, I don't know, whatever. He's a tool, so shut him up. Shut most of them up. They're all a bunch of tools. But in this case, I think Rashida Tlaib deserves it. I think it's enough of this rhetoric. If you're a member in the House of Representatives, just do the work. Do the work at home. Worry about what's going on at home. Worry about what's going on with your constituents, and worry about the American people. Don't worry about a war abroad. Worry about the crumbling bridges at home. How about that? I don't know. Or maybe the economy being just garbage.